Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is relieve. Let's take a look at some of the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear relieve used is to mean to cause pain to become less severe or less serious. It's possible you'll hear this verb used as you're talking to a doctor or a pharmacist and maybe asking questions about certain medication. Will it relieve my pain? Will the pain become less severe or less serious? A second way you might hear relieve used is to mean to cause someone to stop feeling worried or anxious. I would also add to the second definition um, uh, an end to feeling of stress. So think of worry, anxiety, and stress. So anything that stops those feelings. A third definition for this particular verb is to release someone from a particular duty by taking their place. So, I recently saw an article where a nurse talked about relieving another nurse. So, um, the first one had worked his or her shift, and now a second one was beginning to take care of the same patients that the first nurse had. A fourth way you might hear the verb relieve used is in a rather informal way. Some might call this slang, and some people use it to mean to urinate or defecate. So, another way to say this, think about going to the bathroom. So, with this particular usage, it's most common to see a reflexive pronoun used. So, someone saying, maybe, I need to relieve myself. I need to go to the bathroom. Again, I wouldn't encourage you to use this particular meaning as you're talking, especially not at work or maybe at school. Again, rather informal usage. You should know that relieve is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, you're going to drop the E and then add ing to form relieving. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by just adding the letter D since this verb already ends in an E. The base verb, relieve, v, v, ends in a voiced V sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. Relieved, relieved. Okay. Now, there is a phrasal verb that you might hear or see as you're reading. It's relieve of, and this can have a couple different meanings. So, one is to remove some type of burden or obligation, decrease someone's stress. So, an example of that might be in the sentence, she relieved herself of anxiety by doing yoga and exercising regularly. So, this is how she removed or lessened the stress and maybe uncomfortable worrying feelings that she has in her life. A second way to use relieve of is to mean to remove someone from a job or a set of responsibilities. Sometimes this is seen as maybe a kinder or more sophisticated and professional way of saying someone has been fired. Okay, they have maybe been relieved of their duties or relieved of certain responsibilities. An example of this usage in a sentence would be the military officer was relieved of his command after sharing inappropriate videos. So, again, we're saying here someone has been removed from the job due to some bad actions. Let's continue practicing our verb of the day relieve in a couple different verb tenses. Today we'll practice the simple present and the simple future using be going to. Let's start with the simple present. Remember, we use this verb tense to talk about habits and routines. We also use it to discuss facts. And the trick here is to really pay attention to your subject. If your subject is I, you, we, or they, then you're just going to use the base verb in the affirmative. But if your subject is he, she, or it, you're going to want to add an S to the end of this verb. And you can see that in the example sentence. Tylenol relieves her headaches. Okay, so it decreases that pain she might be having. Okay, and since I'm just talking about one type of medicine, I'm using that form with the S on the verb. Okay, now if you want to make a negative simple present sentence, again, we have to pay attention to our subjects. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we're going to use do not and then the base verb. You might also hear some people use the contraction don't and then the base verb. But if the subject is he, she, or it, we're going to use does not and the base verb, or the contraction doesn't and the base verb. Notice with both of these, I'm not adding an S to the end of the verb, just the base verb in this structure. So an example of this might be, smoking does not relieve stress. It doesn't lessen that or decrease stress. And this is a statement based on research. Many researchers have examined because people have given this reason. I smoke because it helps me feel less worried, less anxious, less stressed. And so a number of studies have been done, and it's the results have indicated that it actually does not relieve stress. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the simple present, you're going to start with do or does, whichever form matches your subject, and the subject comes next, and then you're going to use the base verb. So again, no S on the verb here. An example, yes or no question would be, do brief naps relieve sleep deprivation? So this is, again, comes from an article I recently read, meaning does it help if someone isn't getting enough sleep at night? Now let's take a look at the simple future using be going to. This gets used to talk about plans, also with predictions. And the thing to pay attention to is our form of be. That's what's going to change based on what our subject is, right? So if our subject is I'm going to use am. If our subject is he, she, or it, I'll use is. And if our subjects are happen to be you, we, or they, we'll use are. Okay, so you're going to use a form of be, then going to, and then the base verb. The structure after that stays the same. Okay, let's look at an example sentence. The new hospital is going to relieve some of the pressure on surrounding hospitals. So we know a lot of hospitals right now are sort of stretched to their capacity. They're treating COVID patients. They might not have enough beds. And so I saw an article discussing how the creation and building of this new hospital would help the other hospitals in the area. If you want to make a negative simple future sentence using be going to, then you need to insert not after our be verb. You might see contractions. Is not can become isn't, are not can become aren't, but there isn't a contraction with am not. Okay, so let's take a look at our examples sentence. The company isn't going to relieve him of his duties. So again, kind of a nicer, kinder way. They're not going to fire him, is what is being said there. So notice the structure, right? So I have is, I have not, then I have going to, and the base verb. Lastly, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future using be going to. To do this, you want to start with the form of be that matches your subject, and the subject is going to come next, and then we'll follow that same pattern, going to, and then the base verb. Here's an example. Are you going to relieve me later this afternoon? Right? So maybe I'm talking to a coworker, like, are you going to take over my responsibilities? Maybe I'm working a cash register at a particular store, right? And I want to know who is going to come take my place. Now, let's spend just a few minutes looking at some words that are related to our verb relieve. The first word we're going to look at is the noun relief. Okay? This can have a few meanings just like our verb. One possible way to use the noun relief is to refer to a feeling of reassurance or relaxation after having felt rather anxious or distressed. An example of this might be, much to my relief, the presentation was canceled. Okay, so maybe I was feeling kind of nervous and worried. Oh no, I'm going to have to speak in front of a lot of people. And then the presentation gets canceled, right? So I have this feeling of reassurance. I feel more relaxed. A second way to use the noun relief is to refer to the reduction or elimination of pain or discomfort. An example of this medication will provide relief from pain. A third way to use the noun relief is to mean the assistance that is given to people in need, or maybe a group of people that are having some sort of challenge or some difficulties. An example of this might be, we're collecting clothes, food, and money for hurricane relief. Right? So in this particular sentence, someone is trying to organize assistance for people who maybe have lost their homes, lost their possessions, are unable to buy food or cook for themselves, right? All of these things are needed to help them get back on their feet and live healthy lives. The next noun we're going to look at is the word reliever. One way to use this noun is to mean something or someone that provides relief from pain, distress, or any type of difficulty. So, an example of this might be, swimming is a great stress reliever for me. Okay, so the activity of swimming, right, relieves maybe some pressure I feel from work and family obligations. A second way you might hear the noun reliever used is if you enjoy the sport of baseball. And I do. So I'm going to include this definition. When you hear reliever used in the sport of baseball, what's being referred to is a pitcher who comes into the game after it has started, and that person is replacing the previous pitcher. An example of this noun in a sentence would be, the team just drafted a left-handed reliever, right? So someone who is not going to be the starting pitcher, the pitcher who begins a game, but later on will come in to help finish the game. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.